I mean,
He's a
nobody
little
should.
what?
He's a little low on emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
I mean, nobody should say to you, no, your colleague has unique skills, whereas you're just a generalist. And oh my God, if you knew Rob, you've heard me talk about him so much. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
so obviously they're short of funding for him as well. So Carlos adores him because in
Right.
his Rob has managed to get Carlos's work in the Financial Times, and therefore, Rob can walk
Right.
on water.
Right. Right.
But it's just going to make my life miserable at work if I have to work with Rob again. The first year in the job, I had to work with Rob, and it just
Mm-hmm.
so we'll see.
Well,
I
maybe you'll
think
be supporting enough, a bigger department that you can really just
I
split
think
things up and build a wall
yeah.
between you.
I think it, and actually the anthropologists, I know the head of school and the head of admin for the school, who's usually is very unsubtle and unprofessional sometimes. When I have meetings with her, she always says to me, "Tell me again what it is that Rob does."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Nobody understands what he does." So I think,
So are you saying she'll be an ally to you?
yeah, I think she'll be like, "I don't think we need Rob as well as Rosalind. I think Rosalind will suffice."
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just talking about my.
Is this the new job dynamics?
It's the where can we find 50% more work for Rosalind to do, because 50% of her funding's just disappeared thanks to the British
With the
government.
UK cuts.
Yeah, the ODA cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so departments are combining roles.
Oh, they somehow found the money to fund our nuclear deterrence. Strangely, that money must have fallen down the back of the sofa.
Very large sofa.
The car mat.
Sofa.
Yeah. That's where I keep my trillions of dollars for nuclear deterrence.
Exactly. It's like when you find a cookie or a pound coin, you're like, "Oh, I found."
We used to call that fishing when my parents they entertained quite a bit growing up, and they would have a party, and then afterward, all 5 of us would dive into the sofas because we could go fishing for whoever left, the 12 cents or whatever, and
Oh, excellent.
like we'd robbed a bank.
That's a good idea. I don't think I ever found anything apart from biscuit crumbs.
Yeah.
Oh well. Yep. Strange old time. We're beginning. I feel like it's deja vu that we're beginning to go through what you guys went through like 4 years ago. We've got, earlier in the week.
You mean just with such tumultuous policy making,
Yeah,
where you're like, what's going to come tomorrow?
It's like the equivalent
what more
of,
can they do?
Yeah, like your USAID stuff, and then I was trying to argue with the kids.
I mean, the thing was that USAID was never really decimated. It was just threatened, but the funding didn't actually, I mean, it was under threat, but it never was decimated in the way that FCO and DFID and now the research.
And what's funny is you hear those numbers that they throw around, and of course, depending on which side they're on, it's like, yes, we spend, so many trillions or billions of dollars on foreign aid. And you're like, well, that's a lot of money, but it's only 1% of our budget.
Right. Right.
Yeah, or 0.7 in.
Yeah, whatever it is. It's just like minuscule.
Tiny. I mean, the point is it's tiny, right? Like the military budget. I mean, are there any countries that are really even getting to the 1% pledge or whatever it's supposed to be?
Oh well,
Australia was trying to get there, and I know that only because Indonesia got the windfall of all that, a lot of that funding. But a lot of it was G2G investments as well, not just the kind of aid that we work for. So,
well, the UK government, it was David Cameron did set in place 0.7 was always the target, and they got to 0.7 3 years ago, I think it is now. So for 3 years it's been. But the right-wing media have been chipping away at it, and part of the big attacks on Oxfam a couple of years ago were very heavily politically motivated.
Mm,
So the
mhm.
right's thrilled at last that, this money
Some of
is
this is coming through,
been
yeah.
cut. Been a long time coming. But anyway, so I just saw an email from our union because this means, lots of job cuts in the university sector as well as in developing countries.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, and then what else in the lovely in the news today in the House of Commons, they passed a police bill which is outlawing like protest.
I saw you post that. I have to say
Why?
that kind of stuff
Why?
doesn't, that news doesn't come
What?
to,
Like
What is
protests in
that?
a certain, like all protests or like protests of,
If it can be proven that you have created an annoyance or an inconvenience,
Defines
which
that.
is the point of protest, right?
yes,
Wow.
Then you could face up to 10 years in prison. I mean, obviously you would need to be creating a pretty big annoyance to get 10 years, admittedly, but they don't even talk about like damage to property or criminal damage. It actually uses words like annoyance, a severe annoyance and inconvenience.
Mhm.
so they just leave it,
Of
they
annoyance.
just leave it really vague, like some of our laws, so that we can manipulate it all we want.
Yeah.
and so that
sure.
actually passed? Because I saw the stuff on Instagram yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got to watch the 10 o'clock news now and see what the
Okay.
the voting took place today.
Okay.
And as is always in our house, Ewan was going crazy because our so-called opposition, the Labour Party, initially the head of the Labour Party was actually trying to get his MPs not to abstain.
Uh-huh.
And that was just too much for the Labour. We're like going, no. This is not acceptable. We're going to vote against this. So I don't know if it passed or not. I should find out.
God,
Yeah,
of
it's
the
just
votes to
depressing.
pass something like that? That's depressing.
Yeah, our MPs get to vote and things like that. It all started because last week a young woman was mugged and kidnapped in London and killed and by an off-duty police officer.
Oh, I saw that.
And it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare, which is this is what I was trying to say to the kids. Actually, you realize it's really rare because it makes the headlines. It's like such a huge story. That's not to detract from it, but so on Friday night, I think it was on Friday night, Reclaim the Streets, which is everywhere, right? You guys have Reclaim the Streets. The Reclaim the Streets put in an application for a big vigil, not even a protest, a vigil in Clapham Common, on Clapham Common, and the police turned it down, which was really surprising, considering that it was a police officer.
That's stupid. Yeah,
murdered
that's
her.
politically stupid.
Yeah, big mistake. So as a result, that got people really angry, and a much angrier, more radical crowd came out than the kind of all-encompassing multi-platform Reclaim the Streets. So it stayed peaceful in daylight hours, and then as it got dark, the police demanded that people disperse, and a lot of women, young angry women with face masks and everything, began to chant and protest, and it kind of got nasty. So there's lots of photographs of women on the ground with police people's boots on their backs and all the kind of thing that you don't really. I mean, I sometimes think, who's doing the public relations for these people? Like, you think the police, the London Met, would say, do you know what? This is going to look really bad for us. If nothing else, especially in the middle of a pandemic, let's not rile, the people who have been incredibly supportive to us over the last year.
Yeah.
And it brings back the whole idea of who decides what's, first of all, an annoyance, and is there a place for peaceful protest?
Right.
Or is peaceful protest by its very name
Yeah.
annoyance?
And plus, this was all in the week of like International Women's Day. It was, you know,
Oh
a
my God,
young
yeah, everything
woman
about
that
it
was
was awful.
killed.
And Mother's Day,
And
right?
Mother's
And
Day.
a lot of
yeah,
Mother's Day activism
Yeah.
is around women's
Yeah.
rights, yeah, in the UK.
Yeah. And a lot of people, a lot of women came out like during the week. The police came out when I think some women MPs were demanding that, you know, obviously things got safer. The police said what they've been saying for about 200 years, like women should stay at home. Yeah, you should stay at home to be safe. And you're like, fuck off.
Oh my
These
God.
You know,
streets-
now is the only time when
Stay
that
at
makes
home.
sense. Like
Yeah.
everybody should stay
Well,
home.
everybody should stay at home.
Right.
But when
But-
you specifically pick out a minority and say you should stay home, that's,
Yeah, although we're not a minority.
well,
Yeah,
you know
no,
what I mean.
Fun fact,
No, I know what you
50% of
mean.
the population.
Yeah. Tell
Oh,
half the
my God.
population to stay home. So anyway, it's just been a clusterfuck of enormous proportions.
Oh my God. I
But
mean,
yeah. So it's like, can this place get anywhere? You know, and it's like this morning, the news, like, you know, eventually Britain's place in the world, global Britain, was like announced today. It was just like, it's just day in, day out. It really is. It is what you guys were going through when
Mhm.
Trump originally got in. It's just like you get up every morning and you think more shit.
What's next?
Yeah, what's next? What's
yeah.
next? You know?
That's probably about the only good, I mean, one of the good things about Biden being elected is that we're not dealing with that constant outrage. I mean, people are still upset. I mean, the other side is not happy with Biden, but there's not that,
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
know, quite hatred. Like,
Yeah, and I don't think they're like getting up every day on the news and being like, you know,
Yeah,
what craziness is going to happen today?
yeah.
yeah, I think it's more like, you're right, Laura, it's more the craziness. I mean, I speak to my mom and she's been a Republican her whole life, which is fine. And she's not happy with Biden at all,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but there's not the anger
Yeah.
involved with
Right,
what you're not happy with,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
which was what was really bad, I think, the last 4 years, the
Yeah.
division and the hatred.
The
Right.
tension as well. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
even
Well, can I show you something really happy making? Speaking of the Biden
hmm
administration, I found it here. Check out what the cabinet looks like. Isn't that great?
Wow.
That's got to be one
Wow.
of the most. That's got to be it's the one picture I could find in some obscure station. Like, look at that.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
Yeah, and it was so great. Deb Holland just
Deb
got
Holland just got
confirmed. Yeah.
First Native American in a cabinet position ever in
Wow.
Interior.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Wow.
10
pretty
out
phenomenal.
of
Yeah.
24 are women. Wow.
Yeah, lots of women.
Weirdly, it's the transportation guy I know the most about because of the projects
Yeah.
I'm working on. It's like,
Would it just-
why I would ever have known this before, but I actually, he's the only one I can name at the moment.
Buttigieg. Well,
Buttigieg,
Janet
yeah.
Yellen, you can name, right?
Yeah.
Janet Yellen.
Yeah.
is
She's
But who?
Yeah,
do
there's a
anything-
lot of people I didn't know, but I could say that about almost a lot of cabinets.
Well, Vilsack, you know, I mean, he's sort of a redo from the Clinton administration for agriculture.
yeah, and Merrick Garland was the failed Supreme Court nominee,
Yeah,
so
I
people
think
know
I-
his name.
Mm.
But I didn't know Wilson. To be honest, I try not to get too involved with what's going on in DC because it's frustrating. I think
Well,
my
but
energy.
this is encouraging. Like this
Yes.
picture right here.
Now-
And then
And a lot of these folks
Jay
are
Isabel-
statespeople, like, you know, HHS, that guy's well-known California. I mean, a lot of them are coming, well, maybe they're on the national scene, but it feels like more of them are appointees from states.
And
Isabel
Laurel, did you
Guzman, the
know
small
the?
business administrator, so the last one there on the bottom right, the small business administrator, that's huge
Mm.
too.
Yeah, she's
Isabel Guzman.
familiar. And the UN ambassador, I haven't come across her before.
She was one of the first to be appoint or
Right,
approved in the Senate, and she's a career diplomat.
right. Good.
So she would have been, you know, ambassador here and there. And I can't remember if she came out of USAID or a State Department or, but she's a career diplomat.
Mm. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. thought I'd share that because it made me
Yeah,
happy.
thank you.
I thought,
That's-
yeah, I saw the Guzman confirmation and I thought, I wonder what the cabinet now looks like, just
Right.
physically. And I found this picture and I went, oh, that's great. Look how diverse we are now.
Wait, where's Dana? She texted me saying, send me the link. And then I
Oh.
just realized she's not here.
Well, she was lost in La La Land yesterday. I'm not seeing a note from her.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, yesterday I forgot that you guys' clocks had changed. So I came on an hour later. and I
An
was
hour
like,
later, yeah,
"They're not
yeah.
here."
We figured like,
Yeah. But I've only got a few days because I'm like, yay, it's an hour earlier, but then our clocks will change in
Astrid,
couple of-
do you mind forwarding to Dana as well?
Oh, they do. I didn't realize you guys changed as well.
yeah.
Because maybe I
Yeah.
have her email incorrect. It's
yeah,
Dana Gillum Claby, right?
although I should be able to,
Ooh, good
be able
grief.
to send her the, where did it go?
She asked for it on her email.
Well, speaking of time, yesterday I was at work, did all the stuff I needed to do, baked some things, talked to some people, did the blah, 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 and logged on to my conference that was to start at 5. And they were wrapping up.
Oh, no.
Awkward.
It was 3 to 5, not 5 to 7.
Oh, God.
Been there,
Oh,
done that.
I was thinking it was a daylight savings time thing, maybe.
Nothing to do with that, just my mind apparently transposed the numbers to something that wasn't even there.
Well, I think that happens. Well, it depends. If you use do you say 1500 to 1700?
No, we don't, no.
I see, we do that a lot. We use that a lot, especially when, you're putting things into Zoom or your calendar. And that often happens to me. 1500 becomes 5 p.m. And then
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
no,
it's 3
I have
p.m.
nothing to blame it on other than myself. I had actually written it down in several places in the house just so that I remembered.
Mhm.
God.
Oh,
Yeah.
well. It probably could have been said in 5 minutes. These 2-hour Zoom calls are like.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a training for, I don't even know what it was for, but
And so what happened
I
to
paid
your
for it.
deaf client? Or you were were you a
no,
participant or you
I
were
was just-
working?
it was an interpreter thing. It was,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
see. I had one of my ASL or one of my CART people didn't come the other day. Somebody we'd booked for a meeting. And so I was like hastily trying to do CART for my
Oh, boy.
colleague.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cart?
you learn
What's
really
cart? What's
quickly.
cart?
CART is
Time captioning.
closed captioning. It's
Oh,
real
right.
time.
Okay.
Computer assisted real time captioning. Is that what is the
Oh,
CA
yeah.
stand for computer assisted, Mary? It's some weird
I think
acronym.
it should be.
It's real time closed captioning.
Right.
So the people who type as you speak.
Very good.
Uh-oh.
I was
Are,
trying to
are you
find
going to
it.
do the Republican senators so we can see
Well,
what
I
that
was
crowd
trying to
looks
find
like?
this because last time they showed it, it's basically besides one guy, the South Carolina of all places, Tim Scott, who's African American. Everybody else is white.
Oh my God, look at that. This
Well,
right
after
there.
having strong
White
third
and
for as long as they did, they're
pretty
bound
male.
to have somebody else.
There's a number of
find-
women. I imagine that. I mean, the Democrats is a little different, but I don't think there's a.
Yeah.
So it is unique what he's done there.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah, the cabinet is just so huge.
Wow, it's all white. Hang on, I've gone
Yes.
down.
Yeah, the Republicans are all white except one. There's like, what's his name? Senator, is it Scott from South Carolina?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
South
Tim
Carolina.
I wanna,
Yeah.
I'm sort of wondering what his family dinners are like. Like how,
Scott.
like, how do you become a Black Republican? I mean, that just to me is like, what version of the Republican Party do
Right.
you associate with where that actually makes sense?
Right.
Like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting who's the black Supreme Court judge? I'm totally blanking on this.
Clarence Thomas.
There was a really interesting biography of him.
There's a Democrats. It's not much better.
That I heard discussed, and there was a really interesting case for black conservatism among men that had some weird origins in basically it's sort of a patriarchy kind of play. That was sort of but the author was struggling with that same question, like, how are you a Republican, black and Republican?
Well, I mean, yeah, I got into trouble with a colleague, a young Indian colleague, who I had said something during Brexit that some survey had done that a certain percentage of first generation older Indian and Pakistani Londoners had voted for Brexit because they thought there were like too many migrants coming in. And, you know, I was like saying, well, how can people like vote for Tories and how can people this? And she was like, so are you saying that like all people of color should be of a particular persuasion? And I was going, no, but no, of course not. But at the same time, but she was right.
Well, I think what's so striking is in this day and age, right? Like when there's so many hostile to your community policies that came down, I find that particularly interesting, right?
Yeah, but I mean, our Home Secretary is Asian, and she has said herself, because we're getting new migration bills, she herself has said, with some pride in her voice, crazy woman, that her new immigration rules would mean that her own parents would not have been allowed entry into the UK. And that takes a special kind of
Trump
fucking C word who actually has in mind their own parents, preventing them from coming into the country, setting immigration rules. You know, knowing that how hard they worked. Her dad was a bus driver and, you know, paid for her for like private school and did everything for her.
Well, I mean, that's frankly the same with most American families whose families came here as immigrants as that many generations ago, and you know, now closing the door for others.
Anyway, sorry, keep depressing.
There's something to be said for that sort of ideological consistency, though. I mean, not that I can relate to that with people of that persuasion, but at least if they're consistent over the course of their lives, right? I can respect that. It's when they flip-flop that I find, you know, the Lindsey Grahams and the Mitch McConnells who are just so fucking optimistic in their beliefs, right? Like there is no
absolutely, there is no actual ideology beyond like power.
Opportunism.
Which is the same on both sides. Or those guys, that are
I don't know. Lindsey Graham is to the worst, though.
Oh yeah, he is.
He has
shown
no
pretty
principles.
easily, but...
and Clarence Thomas, I think, is, if I remember correctly, you can chalk that one up to the Catholics, right? He comes out of Missouri, so I kind of.
Yeah, it's a particular flavor of sort of religiously influenced paternalism, like where the man is supposed to be the savior and
a serial harasser.
Well, you know,
and the women are supposed to stay home.
Certain view of
you really have to look where they're from, though. I've read something book recently about strangers in our own land, where it wasn't about minorities so much as a little bit, but they were down in Louisiana, and these people are living in Cancer Alley, and they know the policies against the environment are horrible for them, but they will not vote Democrat or support regulations because of whatever the story is. It could be religion, it could be you know, the jobs are more important,
right?
So,
or financially,
you know, so conservative Black people, you know, who knows what their actual story is, maybe not coming from inner city places, and and if they are religious, there are people who just vote just on the abortion issue only, both sides.
Yeah,
which is weird to me, but
I mean, yeah, there's some just single issue voters, right? That
Yes.
that no matter where they live or what their life experience is.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you're right. Like some of those places, I mean, I just don't even get it with people in rural Oregon, right? Like how is anybody opposed to a $15 minimum wage? What? It's like
Right. Especially when you work for minimum wage.
Yeah.
minimum wage. Like what? Like somehow you're not deserving. Terrible things will happen if you get paid more. This is just like plain
What I
absurd.
understand from my friends who are in minimum wage jobs is it is minimum wage or they don't have a job because they're established.
That's what they think, right?
Can't
They think
afford
their
it.
establishment will go under.
Well, and those smaller rural areas that could, I mean, I'm not saying for sure it would, but some of those places, I mean, the cost of living is less than it is here.
Well, even
So-
in Portland, I mean, I have several friends who are servers and
Mhm.
have been servers for 20, 30 years and probably get paid a little more than minimum wage at this point, but not much because they're still
Mhm.
servers. And they're vehemently opposed to it because they know, I mean, in like I have one friend who works at what used to be the Red Star, which is an establishment that's been in Portland forever and ever and ever. They closed because of COVID, but you know, had they been required to switch over, they probably would have had to not continue. So I think that, I mean, there's,
Well, I don't know. Really? You think paying people, I mean, there must be something wrong with their economic models or their business model if they can't pay their employers a living wage,
yeah,
right?
I don't understand all the economics or politics of it, but
Yeah, I mean, in the math of it, it's just difficult when you're trying to solve it on an individual business level. But
right.
If you require it across the board, I was having this. We're doing some exploration of long-term care insurance right now, and it's really interesting talking to insurance agents about sort of the ins and outs of that and how the financial models of those insurance products have been changing over the years. And then it turns out a relatively small state like Washington State is now trying to solve for the long-term care needs of an aging population, which is universally true across the US,
Right.
through a payroll tax deduction for long-term care. But of course, you know, they make it not mandatory, so you can opt out if you self-insure. And I predict it's going to fail. Like if anything like that, if there is
Right. Then people start to opt out, and
then you opt out, and then the whole, you know,
It's not enough. Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
some of these things you just need to level up to at a federal level and solve for them much more structurally. And that's, of course, in this country. God forbid.
I agree, Astrid.
Pay for the things with taxes. Hello.
Yes. Yes.
But then the decision making at the individual level just becomes so
Right.
friggin' difficult. Like if you're the business owner and all of a sudden you go from, you know, I thought my cost of goods was X and now it's Y because
Right.
of labor costs. That can
and
be
you're telling me I have to pay it.
yeah.
Well, and it just, I mean, they would just have to raise the prices for whatever the product is.
Yeah, but you
Or
could
make
offset
less
it,
profit.
right? I mean, you could offset
Well,
it.
in some companies, that's true. Like
Right.
Amazon's not gonna hurt them, but smaller businesses may be working on a smaller margin. You know what I mean? So it's, we as
Yeah,
consumers would have to,
but then you could have these measures go hand in hand with some sort of offset for smaller businesses,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
right? Like maybe
Right.
maybe I get a credit for implementing that, and I get some sort of grace period by which I can retool my internal business
Right.
model to
Right.
make it so.
but you can have some, like Ross was saying, I mean, and you could have some, for me, it's a really weird thing to wrap my hands around it. I mean, you can have a small business. I think of where my brother-in-law works and they make buku money.
Yeah.
Company of 50 people. They're a niche market
Mm-hmm.
versus somebody who has 50 people who's, you know, not, you know, just making a normal living.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I guess our friend Dana's not going to show up. You
I don't
think we
think
should
she's
go ahead?
gonna-
She hasn't texted me
Sure,
again, and I don't see her.
Should I see if she's on Dawn's? Should I see if she's on Dawn's?
I'm
I
gonna
think
need to
I have
scoot in a second, so
Okay. Rosalina, are we doing St. Patty's Day today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay, that's what I thought. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Oh,
wanted to
that's
make sure it was the same day.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
I was
was
like, green
maybe the
today. I wore my
American
green
St. Patrick's
today.
Day is.
Oh yeah, no, it's the 17th.
The 17th.
I'll
Okay,
wear it
well-
again tomorrow.
I mean, they just had Mother's Day in the UK and we don't have that until May. So I was like, I don't know. I could imagine the
Yeah.
Americans for
No.
some weird reason.
No,
changing.
no, Patty's is tomorrow.
No, no, the Saints' Days are not nationalistic.